Hello, everybody, and welcome in to GC Live here on Gamecock Central. Kendall Smith and Jack Veltri joining you here. Happy Wednesday. We hope that you all are doing well. Jack, how are you?
I'm doing good. We are in mock game week now officially. South Carolina only 11 days away from kickoff on Sunday, August 31st in Atlanta. And doing good otherwise. I'm ready for football season to be here. How are you doing, Kendall?
I am good. I'm so excited. I feel like every week we have said this over and over, but we are getting closer and closer and closer to football season. And now I feel like it's really here. Like in my mind, my birthday is over. So I'm like, okay, it's officially fall. And now I can lock into football season. So I cannot wait. As you said, mock game week. And we've heard from a bunch of different people throughout this week. Shane Beamer, LaNorris Sellers, amongst others, talking about South Carolina's scrimmage last weekend, how preseason practice is going, some unfortunate injuries that South Carolina players have sustained, what the plan is going forward, what's up with Rasul Faison. Like, there is so much that we are going to talk about here today, Jack. But before we get into it, let's give a shout out to our presenting sponsor of the show.
Yeah, talking about Clint Hammond of CMG Home Loans. If you're watching live, you'll see his information above us here on screen. But if you're listening, if you're in the need to buy a home right now, you just need help with your mortgage, but you don't know where to begin. It could be a complicated process, as we all know, in the housing market today. Clint can help you out. He's been in the mortgage industry for more than 20 years now with a lot of experience under his belt. He's also a lifelong Gamecock fan. He's also a longtime supporter of Gamecock Central. So you know you're in the right hands with a guy like Clint. If you're interested, give him a call, 803-422-6797. The NMLS number for him is 71597. Or go to clinthammond.com for more info.
Clint, thank you so much for all that you do for us here on GC Live and at Gamecock Central. Okay, Jack, let's get into it. Let's start with the hardest question that you will have all day long. How were Emily Beamer's cookies?
Oh, I like that question.
Wait, so for anyone who doesn't know the backstory, let's hear it.
So, okay, if you watch the Netflix documentary, Any Given Saturday, the SEC documentary that released on August 5th, Emily Beamer, Shane's wife, is, I don't want to say prominently featured, but she's in a lot of the 5th episode, which is mainly about South Carolina with the Beamer kids, the Texas A&M game, things like that. And Emily's making cookies in one of the shots, and apparently there were a lot of people, I don't know, online or whatever, in her DMs and comments about how she undercooked her cookies. I mean, when you look at it on the TV and stuff, even I thought a little bit, I'm like, those do look a little undercooked. But I'm not taking it to the next level of like, let's go in her DMs and like go harass her or whatever. So Shane, in his press conference the following week, last Tuesday, basically called out all those people and stood up for his wife and all that and said the cookies are outstanding. And I think one of the media members asked Shane, you know, would he bring the cookies in next week for media availability so we could try them to tell him if they're really good or not. And, he brought in a box of cookies yesterday. I wish I had the picture pulled up on screen. I did not have that on here before the show. But he brought the cookies in. We had them after the media availability. If you went on Twitter, you'd see that I put my thing out. And I know Gamecock Football put out a whole video about the media members trying.
You were in it.
I was barely – what happened was I took a bite of the cookie, and I was like, go to my Twitter for the review or something. I was like – which, you know, if you follow me for long enough, I do stuff like that all the time. But I gave the cookie review a 9.5 out of 10. It was very good. I was talking to Elijah Campbell from 107.5 this morning. He was like, yeah, I gave it a 9 out of 10. Like, the cookies were very good, a little bit soft, not undercooked really much, a little bit, but not really at all. That's fine, honestly. You know, I have no issues with that. I'd rather take a soft and chewy cookie compared to something super hard. So it was very, very good, and I can't complain. So shout out to Emily Beamer for making the cookies, and shout out to Shane for bringing them to media availability.
Yeah, that is so cool that he brought them, and so awesome that Emily made them. They looked really good. They looked fluffy. They look delicious. And I'm sorry, but like the truth is a little bit undercooked is the way to go. Because
Exactly.
I do not want a crunchy cookie. Like I don't care what anybody says, unless it's Chips Ahoy. I guess I'll have a crunchy Chips Ahoy cookie if I have to. But if I'm having a homemade chocolate chip cookie, it needs to be soft. Like I don't care what anybody says.
Chips
That's how it
Ahoy.
has to be.
Hot take: Chips Ahoy sucks. Chips Ahoy sucks. Oreos are good. You know, honestly, here's the only way I'll eat a hard cookie. Right? I'm not eating yeah.
Yes.
Those cookies would be so good with ice cream. The only way I'm eating a hard cookie is if, number one, it's got to be probably homemade, and I'll put the cookies in the freezer typically, and then I'll eat them like a few hours later. Like that's typically how I like it. But again, everyone's different. But I can't eat a hard cookie that's just been sitting out. That's kind of nah.
Not well, they looked great, and that's so funny that the whole media crew got to experience it. So I'm glad you did. Glad we got to talk about the cookies today on the show. But now it's time to talk a little bit of football, and certainly a lot of news this past week that we've heard about. We got a little bit of inside info in South Carolina's scrimmage from this past Saturday. So I think we should just start there. We'll start with what Shane Beamer was talking about, start with talking about the scrimmage. It didn't exactly go as planned, Jack. It was supposed to be outside, but ended up having to be at the indoor facility because of weather. However, Shane Beamer said that the group still tried to make the experience kind of as it would be if you were at Williams-Brice Stadium and doing the scrimmage over there. So keeping the sidelines maintained, they were taking breaks during what would be TV timeouts. There were a lot of things that they were doing to try to make it as realistic as possible as South Carolina prepares for Virginia Tech. So in Shane Beamer talking about that scrimmage, the last one that South Carolina will have during its preseason camp, he felt like they got a lot accomplished, and he talked about that. But what were some of the specific things that he saw from that scrimmage that he was pleased with? I know he talked about special teams a lot, Jack.
Yeah, and special teams was definitely something that he did want to see in this scrimmage. And the main thing he was looking for was just guys that were going out there and being consistent and coming away feeling really better about a lot of the position groups. And with the special teams, they did some 2-minute drives or 2-minute drills where they would try to put the kickers into in a spot where they got to kick a game-winning field goal to win the game. And every kicker seemingly went through that. And that was very good. He's talked so much about all year long kind of putting those guys in tough situations because none of them have kicked in a game before. So when August 31st comes around, whoever is the kicker, the punter, the holder, the long snapper, it's going to be the first time that all of them are doing it in a game. So, again, we didn't get specifics on who did what or who's in the lead right now. We'll have the depth chart next week, and we can kind of talk more about things then as far as who's starting and who's not. But it's good to see that South Carolina continues to put these guys in tough spots to really try and get the best out of these players going into the season, especially at special teams. Some other things that definitely stood out. I noticed that Shane mentioned last week with the first scrimmage, not a lot of the starters played. So you had a lot of the young guys getting in there because they're trying to figure out, okay, who's traveling with us, who's going to be on the 2 deep, the 3 deep, all that sort of stuff. This week was kind of the opposite with the second scrimmage in terms of a lot of the guys who were going to be starting week 1 against Virginia Tech were out there playing and getting the bulk of the reps. So it's like they know like LaNorris Sellers is going to be starting under center. They know, Jalen Kilgore, DQ Smith are going to be starting out in the secondary. But they're trying to get those guys up to speed as much as possible with so many reps and stuff to simulate the game, like you said, Kendall. And other things that kind of stood out, he did mention that Isaiah Auguste, a transfer running back from Colorado who joined the team in June, he had the longest run of the preseason for about 60 to 70 yards in that scrimmage, which was really good to see. Of course, there was that clip online of Gerald Kilgore, a DB, competing for one of those safety spots out there in the secondary, did have a nice interception on Air Noland with him covering Brian Rowe on Saturday. That's the only turnover that we know of from the scrimmage. So overall, a lot of things that were noteworthy in terms of like specifics. But overall, I think Shane really just wanted to see these guys go through like a game-like atmosphere, stretching, warm-ups, dealing with the adversity that they did with the storm out there and stuff and having to move indoors. he kind of pointed out like a weak-minded team wouldn't be able to do that and whatnot, but his group is really tough and they know what they're doing and whatnot. So he feels very good coming away from the scrimmage overall, as he did say he got a lot accomplished.
And obviously, you would hope he wouldn't come out of that scrimmage and seem disappointed or feel like things didn't go South Carolina's way. That's the frame of mind you want the head coach to be in as you get closer and closer to your first game of the 2025 season. But it's interesting, Jack, because you talk about depth. And I think that's something that's going to be interesting when we get the depth chart next week, just kind of seeing how things fall. You feel like you know to a certain extent where a lot of people stand position-wise, but there are a couple of things that are up for grabs still with this team, things that we don't know about. And something that Shane was asked during his press conference this week was about the quarterback situation. Obviously, we know LaNorris Sellers is going to be the starter for South Carolina, but still no decision made about who the backup quarterback will be or even the third string guy.
Yeah, no decision on that yet. I think we got the question here from Big Red asking, did Beamer say Doty was in the running as the backup quarterback? Yes. So coming into the preseason with fall camp, Beamer did say if the season were to start today, that Luke Doty would be the number 2 quarterback out there. And we have not gotten any indication from Beamer. We spoke to Mike Shula today, and that question was asked. No indication on QB2, QB3. The guys that are in the running are going to be, obviously, like we mentioned, Luke. You'll have other guys like Aaron Nolan, Cutter Woods, guys like that are really going to be out there competing for those reps and potentially backing up LaNorris. So that's kind of where things stand right now. No clear answer, but if I had to take a guess, I would probably say Luke is probably the backup going into the year. And then those other guys, Cutter, Air, they both impressed from what we've heard, and that's what's something that Shula was talking about, Shane was talking about.
All right, let's talk about Shula, because we had the chance to, or you had the chance to, and everybody that's in the media there in Columbia had the chance to talk with him earlier today. And he answered a question that a lot of people wanted to know about, which is where he will assume his play calling duties this year, in the booth or on the sidelines. And a lot of people wondering this because he obviously worked hand in hand with LaNorris Sellers last year, and that was a big point of emphasis heading into the season, is just how strong and dynamic their relationship is. And now as he takes on his first year as offensive coordinator at South Carolina, people were wondering, okay, where will he make the decisions? Where will he make, play calls from? And he ultimately decided, Jack, that he will be
on the field. For a second there, the way you were phrasing that question, I'm like, oh God, she's going to ask me about this whole poop phenomenon.
No.
Have you heard about this?
Yes, I've heard about this.
Oh my God.
We'll get into that next.
Yeah, we're not getting
still because I'm reading it, right? And I'm hearing about it and getting texts about it. And I haven't watched the actual clip yet. So I haven't heard them say it. So it's still not fully I'm not comprehending 100% exactly what it is.
It's, again, for those that missed it, LaNorris basically revealed, and I don't think it was supposed to get out there from the way Shane talked about it after, some things are supposed to stay in house, in that Mike Shula uses he has a fake poop prop that he uses with the quarterbacks when something's done wrong or something, like in film or whatever, when they're watching back through practice and whatnot. And I'm still trying to fully grasp the whole thing. But apparently when Shula was talking about it today, when he was asked about it, it's something that started with Eli Manning, former Giants quarterback that he coached. In his time with the Giants back in the late 2010s, he bought him a fake poop prop, and it's kind of been something that he's used ever since. And I guess just a weird motivational tactic, I guess. And yeah, I mean, you got Kendall. I can't tell you how many times I do not ask any of these kind of questions, but I can't tell you how many poop questions were asked yesterday. I was it's kind of hard to take it serious, to be honest.
I mean, you never know the way that press conferences are going to go, and I'm assuming when you went in yesterday, you obviously were not expecting it to go that way, and then lo and behold, that's the beauty of this job. You just don't know how things are going to end up for the day, and that was the topic of conversation. So if you want more on that, all the full quotes are over on GamecockCentral.com. You can check it out. Shane talked about it. Shula talks about it. Obviously, LaNorris brought it up first. So I have a feeling that the questions about this probably won't stop super soon.
The way I look at it is that it's something to kind of get us through the dog days of fall camp. And
Yep.
but to kind of circle back to what we were actually talking about before, I thought you were going to ask me something about that. Yes, Shula will be calling plays on the field this season. I did ask him that during the press conference, and he said that will probably be the case for this year. And it's something that he's kind of been leaning that way all along. And it's something where he'll be able to really help Sellers in a lot of ways, being right there on the field and being down there with the quarterbacks. I just wrote a story about it on GC, which you guys can go check out if you want. But I was looking it up, doing a little bit of research on this. When he was in the NFL as an offensive coordinator with the Panthers and teams like that, he typically always called plays from the coach's booth, not from the sideline. Now, when he was a quarterback's coach or just an assistant on staff in the NFL, he'd usually work from the field. So this will really, unless he did it somewhere else, this should probably be his first time calling plays on the field as a coordinator. So that's a little bit different from what I think we're used to, because Dow Loggins, South Carolina's former OC, last year did call plays from the booth, and that's typically what a lot of people do. But Shula did mention the fact that they got guys up there in the booth that are going to be able to relay all the information that they need, and anything that Shula needs, he trusts those guys to help him out and get it taken care of. So those should be like offensive assistants and stuff like that. But Shula was on the field last year when he was the senior offensive assistant coach, and I think that continuity, especially with a guy like LaNorris, should help going into this year.
Yeah, I like the decision. I mean, I know that it's more traditional, like you said, to have the offensive coordinator up in the booth. But I think for this scenario in particular, especially knowing the relationship that Shula and Sellers have together, I think it's helpful to have him down there on the field. He's able to communicate with him face to face, and that just makes it a little bit easier versus having to do it over some sort of comm system. So I don't mind the decision at all. I think it's great. And obviously, that's what you have your other coaches for, to be able to relay that information, to be able to watch the game from a bird's eye view and let Shula know what they're seeing. So I'm sure we'll see how it goes, but I'm not surprised by this choice, especially considering the way that things went last year and how Shula was down there. He was kind of that go-to person for LaNorris Sellers, and I expect more of the same, obviously, this year. And with him being down on the field, you just continue what you had going from last season, which obviously was just a massive growth season for LaNorris Sellers from the beginning to the end. We've talked about it so many times on the show, but so much of that credit to Mike Shula for being down there, and obviously for helping him through a lot of those situations where, as we've talked about, and we've talked about this many times too, how many times did LaNorris make something out of nothing in certain plays just because of his sheer athleticism and his sheer talent? So we'll have more on LaNorris a little bit later in the show, but someone we definitely need to talk about, and we talk about him every week, is
it's unavoidable. It is
unavoidable. And you know what? It's rightfully so unavoidable. People want to hear about it. They want to have answers. They want to know.
So
says nothing.
Yeah. So yeah, much of the same compared to every other time. It's we haven't gotten an answer yet, but we're optimistic that things are going to happen and they're going to get, the NCAA will do them right. Well, we're 11 days out now from the start of the season, as this comment from Brandon says. And Shane got to it right away, saying there's just no update. And he was asked a follow-up question later on, because there have been some other cases that have come to a conclusion recently with guys that are kind of in limbo with their eligibility. And the way Beamer put it was, quote, "I think we're just in line. We've given them everything that they've asked, and they've some back a couple times in the last few months, just wanting a little bit more." I think that process, that communication has been very clear and concise. Obviously, the case that I'm most worried about is this one. There's also other cases like you're alluding to as well. And I think we're in line, if you will. So I think it's something where he's right. Again, it kind of just seems like they have to just wait this thing out, because, again, it's not like Rasul's the only case going on. I don't think it's really like the NCAA is just, maybe they are. Who knows? Maybe they're just fooling around, dilly-dallying, and not getting around to this. I'm sure they have other cases like this one exactly that they have to go through. Probably thousands of these. So Rasul is just one of the many that have to wait. And you kind of hope an answer comes soon, because, again, kickoff is around the corner. And I asked Shane this yesterday, how do you kind of divvy up the reps in practice, specifically with the scrimmages? Because we heard Shane talk about earlier this summer, like, that they have the two practice fields. two guys can go on one side, the others can go on the other and get work with the offense. But in a scrimmage, mainly when you're getting as close to as possible to prepare for what a real game is going to be like, how do you divide those reps up knowing this whole thing is in limbo? And you basically, what Shane said is you treat it like Rasul is going to be playing on August 31st. And at the same time, though, you want to get the other running backs a lot of work in. That's seemingly what they've been able to do. Obviously, we heard about Isaiah Auguste having a nice long run during the scrimmage on Saturday. So, again, they're preparing like Rasul is going to be playing, but as we all know, the NCAA is taking a long time. We're in the 8th month of waiting here to figure it out, and maybe the answer will come before the season. Maybe it won't, but it's not even just Rasul. He's just one running back, right? Rocket Sanders got a lot of the carries for South Carolina last year, a huge bulk of them, but you still had other running backs in that room that would get carries from time to time. I think we're going to see a few guys out there on the 31st getting a lot of reps. Oscar Attaway, Auguste, obviously, and then maybe Matthew Fuller and Jawarn Howell out there. So it won't be just one running back and that's it. Like it was always going to be multiple running backs, whether it was Faison out there or not.
Who do you think will be, I mean, if Rasul Faison isn't able to play in week 1, who do you think it will be that will take the majority of the carries for South Carolina to start the season?
Good question. I think probably it's either going to be Oscar Attaway or Isaiah Auguste, if I would imagine. I would lean towards Oscar because he's got the experience, number one, of already being in the system for a year. You know, Auguste, as much as we've talked about him, he joined the program in June, but it seems like he's come along really well in those few months since transferring. So I think we're going to see Oscar be the lead back out there to begin the year. And then I think you have Isaiah mixed in there. I think you get Fuller in there, Howell. You try to figure out who your RB1 would be from that group of guys kind of as you get going into games here. Because I think we saw this back in 2023 when South Carolina didn't have their true running back right away. Like DeCarrion Joyner was your main running back taking snaps and scoring touchdowns in that first game of the year against UNC. And then kind of as the year went along, Mario Anderson, who was only with South Carolina for 1 year, kind of jumped into that top running back role, and he finished with over 700 yards on the ground. So I think it's going to be Oscar, but again, with everything going on with this team, any position, things can change on a week-to-week basis. And so I think like this comment says right here, probably going to be a little bit by committee to start, but I definitely see Auguste and Attaway getting the bulk of the carries.
Well, it's always the next man up mentality with this group. And unfortunately, that has to be the case for the guys that play edge because it's been rough recently in that room, specifically with injuries. And Shane Beamer announcing earlier this week, unfortunately, that George Wilson has sustained an injury. We don't know what it is. All we know is that Shane Beamer said he's going to be out for a while. And you talk about a position group that has just endured a lot injury-wise this preseason. It's been brutal. And this is another really, really tough hit for South Carolina. How do they rebound, Jack?
It's a good question. And the good thing is for this group, despite they've got 3 injuries now to that room, and George Wilson's just the latest. And it seems like, again, Shane, the way he worded it, he says he's going to be out for a while, didn't say he's going to be out for the season, but then he was asked to follow up, like, so does this mean you're kind of going to be looking towards 2026 for him to return? And that seems to be the case. So he basically said it's going to be a long-term, potentially season-ending injury without actually saying it's going to be that way. So we'll see how that shakes out. But yeah, I mean, it's tough, but you have Dylan Stewart still, you have Brian Thomas. So it's like you have your main guys in there, and you also have JT Gear and Desmond Umazula. Like you have other guys in there that can definitely factor in. But yeah, your depth has definitely taken a bit of a hit, and it's going to be really up to these guys that are still in there to go out there and do their thing. Now, they have a few young guys, too, that could really factor in and do some good things. And Clayton White was talking about it a little bit today. They're going to be really leaning on those young guys, those freshmen that have joined the team, and seeing how they can figure in. They'll get a lot of reps, a lot of work, and potentially play a lot on Saturdays for this team. But, you know, if this team wants to rotate guys in and out as often as they really tried to last year with the hockey shifts, might be a little bit tougher just because you have lost a few key guys off the edge.
Well, Jack, it obviously is super unfortunate. And once we get more clarity on exactly kind of what that is, if we get the clarity with this injury for Wilson, we'll obviously keep you updated over on GamecockCentral.com. You certainly don't want to hear about these injuries ever. Preseason is especially hard to hear about because that's a guy who's a transfer, finally getting the chance to come to South Carolina. Originally had committed to Florida State, then went to Campbell, now is finally back at South Carolina, has his opportunity to play for the Gamecocks, and unfortunately is injured. But it was kind of interesting, and you felt like you kind of got your answer anyways when Shane was talking about how they're already looking into options for the 2026 season. You're like, okay, this isn't looking exactly promising, but again, we don't have official word that this is a season-ending injury, but we do know that it's going to have him out for a while, as Shane Beamer said. All right, Jack, we've got some other great sponsors that help us to power this show, so let's give them a shout out.
Yep. First off, let's talk about Palmetto Golf and Belts, as I am going to pull up their information here. So if you love golf, you need to go check out PalmettoGolfing.com for the latest custom-made gear. Even if you don't play, Palmetto Golf and Belts is a really great place to go grab a gift for maybe that special person that's a favorite golfer in your life. They got custom golf gloves, custom golf tees, custom golf towels, all available in the South Carolina Garnet, the cross design, the Palmetto tree and moon design, and so much more. One of the cooler things about this place is the needlepoint belts, which are extremely well made, but also affordable than many of the others on the market. So Palmetto Golf and Belts is operated by Brandon Cohn, who is a big South Carolina fan and also a very long-time member over at GC. Our members on the Insiders Forum are loving the products that Brandon has in his shop right now, and he runs special deals all the time. So head on over to PalmettoGolfing.com and check out his shop. Support a South Carolina fan and a Gamecock Central member and get yourself some great gear. Now, let's also go ahead and talk about our other sponsor here, Ferry Chevrolet, since 1926. If you're a South Carolina fan out there who's interested in a new or used vehicle, make sure you check out our friends over at Ferry Chevrolet out in Orangeburg, which is led by a fourth-generation dealer in Joseph Ferry. The family-owned business over there at Ferry Chevrolet has been serving the community, like I said, since 1926. It's conveniently located just off of I-26, so make that short drive down there, and it's right between Columbia and Charleston. The folks over there are local, trustworthy, and always transparent. The business began in St. Matthews and was built on honesty, integrity, and a handshake, and they still operate with those same principles and values to this day. So like I said, head on over to our friends over at ferrychevrolet.com today to check out their inventory and to get in touch.
Love it. Thank you so much to our great sponsors. And Jack, this is an interesting question here because as we gear up, so I did get on ChatGPT to look this up to see.
I did the same thing.
I did the thing I was missing because I'm like, all right, I can remember one other time South Carolina played on a Sunday, but there may have been a time a long, long time ago. And the only time that it is showing that South Carolina has played on a Sunday, besides obviously what is to come next week, was in October of 2016 against Georgia. And that had to be
the year of the flooding, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Didn't they?
Yep. So that game was scheduled for a Saturday and then had to be moved to a Sunday.
I thought they also played like LSU or something on a Sunday. I know people in the comments here have watched this team for like so long. So I mean, maybe you guys can help out answering this. But yeah, we don't know the exact answers as far as like how many times Carolina's played on a Sunday. I mean, bowl games would probably be the best bet, but typically those are not on Sundays.
Citrus Bowl's on a Tuesday.
Yeah, it's typically like NFL's on a Sunday during bowl season. So, but yeah, that's let's see. Coleman says, didn't a hurricane bump the LSU game? I think that was the case. I'm gonna look this up.
While Jack looks into that, we are gearing up for a Sunday game between South Carolina and Virginia Tech to open the 2025 season. I'm curious what you all think about this. Like, how do we feel about the Sunday game? I have mixed emotions about it being on a Sunday. I will actually be on a work trip over that weekend, so I'll be watching, obviously, and locked in. But I'll also be at baseball games all weekend. And I like it because on Saturday I can just like dial into the Saturday games, watch, not really feel stressed because it's not a South Carolina game day. Like my day will not be like made or broken based off of anything because South Carolina isn't playing on Saturday. Sunday though, like I appreciate that it's at 3:00. I think it's a good time, but I don't know. I don't know how I feel about the Sunday game. I guess since it's Labor Day weekend, it kind of feels like a Saturday, so you probably won't have work the next day, and that's a good thing. But I'm curious to know what you all think about Sunday games. And Jack, did we get an update on LSU?
No, you were right about 2016. They did play Georgia on a Sunday in October that year, so that's correct. 2015, they did play LSU, but I think, as some of the comments did say here, that they moved the game from Columbia because of the floods to LSU. So I think that's also why we haven't seen South Carolina make a trip to Baton Rouge in years. And I think the last time they were there was maybe 2020, but like during an actual season where there were full fans and everything and COVID wasn't happening, it's been quite a while since South Carolina's been, or honestly, I think hosted, LSU. Obviously they did last year, but that had been a while since they had hosted LSU.
All right, well, there we go. Again, maybe way, way, way early on in South Carolina's history, they played some games on Sundays, but the last time they did play on a Sunday was in 2016. So it's almost been 10 years, but that game wasn't supposed to be on a Sunday against Georgia. That was also weather-related concerns that moved it to a Sunday. So I think maybe it's possible, it's very possible that this game coming up on Sunday is the first scheduled Sunday regular season game for South Carolina in recent history.
Yeah.
So it should be interesting. Have we ever won a game in Atlanta? The location is good and bad. So South Carolina neutral sites hasn't been the best over the last few years, unfortunately. This used to be the big conversation about Charlotte. I'm right across the street from Bank of America Stadium, and this used to be a big topic of conversation. Nobody liked to play in Charlotte because they felt like South Carolina didn't play well there. Obviously, they played well there at the Duke's Mayo Bowl back in 2021, but I mean, neutral sites haven't always been friendly to South Carolina. Mercedes-Benz Stadium is an unreal venue, and it's going to be really cool to be in Atlanta, and I think Gamecock fans are going to pack it out. But Jack, what do you think? I
had to double check on this, but South Carolina hasn't played, to my knowledge, in Atlanta since 2010. It's funny because that was the year, obviously, they went to the SEC championship. They lost to Auburn and that really great team led by Cam Newton. Then they ended the season about a month later in I think it was the Chick-fil-A Bowl at the time, which is now the Peach Bowl. They were back in Atlanta, and then they lost to Florida State. So they lost back-to-back games in Atlanta to end the season. So I don't believe they've been there since. Obviously, they have not been to an SEC championship game since then. And I can't remember a time where they played in a Peach Bowl or any of these season openers out there or whatever. But yeah, playing in Charlotte hasn't been too great, but hopefully
Duke's Mayo Bowl was good, but then they played UNC in 2023, and that wasn't great. That was when College Game Day was here at Romare Bearden Park, and it was such a cool day. I mean, awesome, but just was not a great game for South Carolina, unfortunately. This comment is making me laugh. Bring back the sunglasses look for the show. I think that he's talking about these sunglasses that I used to wear when I would vlog for
those big sunglasses that you don't need. Those sunglasses, did you wear them for? By the way, you never posted that.
I know it's going up tonight. It's going up tonight.
It's going up tonight. Okay,
everyone,
good.
Watch out because I vlogged again. So if y'all remember my vlogs, I used to do them a lot. Back when I would travel to games, I would just vlog all the craziness behind the scenes. I was in Columbia for practice last week, and I vlogged it. So I am posting that tonight. I didn't get around to it last week because baseball was tiring me out. But today it will be posted. And yes, I think the sunglasses that are being referred to are these big sunglasses that I used to wear in college all the time.
I think we need to see them.
I don't know where they are, to be honest. I may have gotten rid of them.
You may need to go to like TJ Maxx or one of these stores. Just go get like a cheap pair from like Walmart. I mean, these were like big sunglasses. Oh, they're massive. They are huge sunglasses, if I can remember correctly. Oh my God.
That's so funny that you brought that up. Yes, that was my college style. And I thought that I was just
She's trying
the
not to
coolest
be
in these sunglasses. Oh my goodness. Love that. Well, Jack, again, we talked about a lot here this week. Is there anything we didn't talk about that you want
LaNorris Sellers.
Oh yeah, we need to talk about LaNorris.
Yeah, let's talk about LaNorris a little bit.
Yeah, he talked to the media and he kind of talked about like his comfort level now, where he's at, how he's feeling heading into this upcoming year, and just how much more comfortable he feels overall. I thought those were interesting points of just like, you're sitting in film, you're watching or you're listening to various meetings. And then he was like, yes, like this year it's just so much different for me than it was last year. Obviously, that's what you want to hear if you're South Carolina and if you're a South Carolina fan, but some good stuff from LaNorris Sellers earlier this week.
Yeah. Did you see the Beats commercial that he was in?
Yes. Love that. He said he's not an actor, but I thought it was great.
Yeah. And he gave he gave Beats headphones to all his teammates yesterday, which is always cool seeing stuff like that.
I'm a Beats headphones girl, and I have been for a long time. I never switched up. I never went to like Apple headphones or Bose or anything like that. I've always had Beats. When I was at the gym earlier today, I had my Beats on. So I've been Beats for a long time, and now even I want to support them even more because they're supporting LaNorris Sellers.
Absolutely. I saw one of these comments yesterday that said like less Santa Claus and less giving back and stuff. So always really cool to see a guy like that. I know DJ Lagway at Florida did the same thing. A lot of those guys are sponsored or partnered with Beats by Dr. Dre. So really cool to see that. But yeah, getting kind of into what LaNorris had to say again. He feels very comfortable going into the second year. We talked about Mike Shula before. He feels comfortable working with him on the field and stuff. And I think that's going to be really big for his development and the continuity going into the season of having his offensive coordinator right there with him. So, I think there were also one interesting thing I did take away from what he did have to say. He was asked about were there any plays or drives last season where he's just like, I don't know how I did that. Like, there's no way I'll do that again. The ODU game was something he said that he could barely watch. And, you try to go back and watch those games, learn from it, as tough as it may be, watching how bad maybe some of those plays were. You try to just learn from it. And the one thing we've talked about now for a while, and I know South Carolina and LaNorris and those guys have talked about, is the turnovers, right? I mean, he had 10 fumbles last year, 6 of which were recovered by the other team. That's something that you got to be able to cut down this year. And if South Carolina is going to have the success that they want to have, it does start with LaNorris, but it also starts with taking care of the football and whatnot. So I think that's probably the main thing I had to take away from what LaNorris did have to say, besides the poop gag and stuff and all that. But which, again, I'm going back through the transcript I did yesterday. He was asked quite plenty about that. So.
Well, if you want to see the full story on what LaNorris had to say yesterday, again, head over to GamecockCentral.com. Some great stuff. A lot of funny things discussed this week, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
That whole
never a dull moment at South Carolina. So
the cookies from Emily Beamer, like we have talked about a lot of stuff this week, and there really is never a dull moment, but it is so much fun, and we are just gearing up for the season. Next week, Jack, I'm so excited. We are going to be talking game preview, which we haven't done in so long. I can't wait.
It's here. It is here,
everybody. Like, get excited, get hype.
Yep.
Let us know in the comments who you think South Carolina will upset this year. I think South Carolina is going to have a good season. We'll talk about this more a little bit next week.
Yeah.
I think they're going to have a really solid season, but who do we think like South Carolina is going to go and upset this year? I think it's going to be Ole Miss on the road.
I like that pick. Yeah, they're going to have to win one of these road games, I think. So I'm with you. I think Ole Miss is definitely a game that South Carolina is going to go out there and win this year. So got to make up for how bad last year's game was.
Yes, they do. They have to make up for that because my brother went to law school, Ole Miss. My whole family went to the South Carolina Ole Miss game. I'm like rolling up, feeling great. It's in Columbia. Oh my gosh. Like I did not even want to like look at my brother for the rest of the day. I'm like, just don't look at me. Don't say anything. I can't. So now this year we can return the favor in Oxford.
Let's see it. Let's see it.
All right. I like what we're thinking, everybody.
Yeah,
Let's keep those comments coming, and let's have a great rest of our Wednesday. This was so much fun to spend all of this time with you. And you'll be seeing Jack and I on your screens more as the season starts. We're going to do our usual show, and then we're going to do something else during the season. That will be fun. So stay tuned for that.
First I've heard of it. So
no, Jack, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Oh, I do. I'll have to double check with you after the show.
Jack knows exactly what I'm talking about.
I think I know what she's talking about, but we'll see.
He knows what I'm talking about. I just can't say it because we're going to talk about it next week. So, anyways. Happy Wednesday, everybody. Have a great rest of your day. Thanks so much for joining us here on GC Live. For Jack Veltri, I'm Kendall Smith. Head over to GamecockCentral.com for more, and we will see you soon. Bye.